Consider, for a moment, the very architecture of the stories we tell. At its core, a story is a chain of cause and effect, a sequence of actions and reactions that begins with a single catalytic event. In the grand narrative of a city's salvation or a world's peril, who, in your experience, typically throws that first stone? Who shatters the calm of the ordinary world? It is almost never the hero in his quiet moments of contemplation. It is the villain in the dead of night, with a match, a whisper, or a grand theatrical crime. This is the first and most fundamental psychological advantage. The villain is the architect of the story. The hero, by his very nature, is a responder. He waits for the call, often reluctant, often needing the world to prove its corruption before he is compelled to act. But the villain does not wait. The villain has a blueprint, a vision of a new order, and he begins construction immediately. He chooses the site, lays the foundation, and designs the labyrinth. By the time the hero arrives, the walls are already up, the traps are set, and the rules of the game, his game, are already in motion. Think of it as a game of chess where your opponent not only moves first, but has designed the board itself. He places the pieces where he wants them. He decides which squares are safe and which are minefields. Your opening move is not an attack, it is a desperate reconnaissance. Your entire strategy from that moment on is a response to his opening gambit. You are playing defense on a field he has meticulously prepared. He has the initiative, and in conflict, the initiative is a form of power that is almost impossible to quantify. It is the power of the question to which someone else must now find an answer. He asks, "What will you do when I burn your city's heart to the ground?" And you must spend your precious time, your resources, your spirit, crafting a reply. This architectural control extends beyond the physical plot. It controls the psychological and emotional landscape as well. The villain, by his act, defines the stakes. He decides what is valuable enough to threaten, what is sacred enough to desecrate. He forces the hero to care about something he may have taken for granted. He makes the abstract concrete through the threat of its loss. In doing so, he also dictates the hero's priorities. You are no longer free to pursue your own vision of justice. You are compelled to address his vision of chaos. Your mission is no longer your own. It is a reactive imperative, a list of problems he has authored for you to solve. This creates a profound and often debilitating asymmetry. While the hero is scrambling to understand the new hostile world the villain has built, gathering intelligence, protecting the innocent, patching the holes in the dam, the villain is already moving to phase 2 of his design. He is not reacting to you, he is unfolding his plan. He operates on a timeline he established, toward an objective he alone fully comprehends. You are chasing the shadow of a structure whose full shape remains hidden, and therein lies another subtle victory. The villain controls the narrative's tempo. He can accelerate a crisis to overwhelm you, or he can create a slow, simmering dread that exhausts your vigilance. He manufactures deadlines, the hostage who will die at dawn, the bomb that will detonate at the mayor's speech, and in doing so, he rations your most precious commodity, time. He forces you to make choices under duress, knowing that haste is the enemy of perfection, that a rushed hero is a fallible hero. Your greatest triumphs often come from defying his schedule, from solving his puzzle not at the last second, but before his clock runs out. Yet even in that defiance, you are still dancing to the rhythm he initially set. This role of the architect also grants the villain a perverse form of clarity and purpose. He is not troubled by the question of why. He has already answered it. His motivation, however twisted, is the engine of his blueprint. He builds towards something. The hero, conversely, is often first building a case. He must prove to himself and to the world that the threat is real, that the rules have changed, that the old ways are insufficient. The villain has the conviction of the creator. The hero bears the burden of the critic, the detective, the repairman. So, when we wonder why the villain so often seems to be winning, to be 5 steps ahead, we must first acknowledge this foundational truth. He is ahead because he started the race. He is on top because he built the hill you are struggling to climb. His psychological edge is not merely ruthlessness or intelligence, though he may have those in abundance. It is the profound advantage of the one who defines reality, who declares, through action, the world is now this way, and forces everyone else to live in and fight against the disturbing new world he has made. He writes the first chapter, and in many ways that allows him to write the theme of the entire book. The hero's ultimate task, then, is not just to defeat the villain, but to seize the blueprint, to become an architect himself, not of fear, but of order, to stop reacting and start rebuilding on his own terms. But that transformation, that is the hardest fight of all, because to win, you must first escape the labyrinth he built for you. So let's talk about freedom, not the kind celebrated in parades or written into law, but a darker, more potent strain, the freedom from the very rules that hold a society together. This is the villain's second, and perhaps most decisive psychological advantage. While the hero is bound by ethics, by law, by the need to look into the eyes of the innocent and remain worthy of their trust, the villain is unshackled. He operates in a space beyond conventional morality, and in the narrative of conflict, that space is not a vacuum. It is a sanctuary of pure, terrifying possibility. Think of it as a fight where one combatant has sworn to never strike below the belt, never use a weapon, never endanger a bystander. The other has made no such promise. He sees not rules, but a list of exploitable weaknesses. Your code of honor is not a strength to him. It is a set of instructions on how you can be broken. It is a schematic of your prison. Your morality, which gives you strength in the daylight world, becomes a series of chains in the shadows where he builds his plans. Every line you refuse to cross is a border he knows you will not patrol. It is a door he can leave unlocked, confident you will not follow. This creates an inherent, grinding inefficiency for the hero. Your every action must be filtered through a complex sieve. Is it right? Is it just? Will it protect rather than harm? Will it uphold the very thing I am fighting for? The villain's calculation is brutally simple. Does it work? His decisions are clean, surgical, and direct. He does not waste energy on guilt or second-guessing. He expends no spirit debating the philosophical cost of a necessary evil, because to him, no evil is merely necessary. It is simply a tool. A bomb is more efficient than a warrant. A threat is more efficient than an interrogation. Corruption is more efficient than consensus. This narrative freedom translates into agility. When you are bound by a code, your moves become predictable. You will always take the time to evacuate the building. You will always disarm the henchman instead of ending him. You will always choose the path that leaves your own hands cleanest, even if it's the longer, more dangerous route. The villain knows this. He counts on it. He builds his traps not for a ruthless equal, but for a principled opponent. He can move in straight lines toward his goal, while you are forced into detours and zigzags by the very principles that define you. His plan is a spear thrust. Yours is a scaffold of rescue operations and procedural safeguards. And what of the court of public opinion, that other great constraint? The hero must live in it. His power, his legitimacy, his very identity often depends on being seen as a force for good. He must be a symbol people can believe in. The villain has no such concern. He may seek fear or admiration from a twisted few, but he does not seek public love. He is free from the exhausting work of maintaining a reputation. He can wear the mask of the monster without shame, because that mask is his power. He can let the press call him a terrorist, a madman, a monster. Those are just words. But let them call the hero a vigilante, a danger, an unstable element. And the foundation of his mission be begins to crack. The villain can act. The hero must also perform. This moral unconstraint grants the villain another tool, the power of absolute commitment. He is willing to burn his own life, his wealth, his legacy, even the city he claims to love, to prove a point or achieve his ends. He is playing for keeps with chips the hero is not allowed to even touch. How can you threaten a man who has already sacrificed his own humanity? How can you bargain with someone who values nothing you hold dear? You try to appeal to the remnant of a soul, to a memory of good, but he has already cauterized that wound. He has embraced the darkness, not as a place to hide, but as a homeland. You fight to return to the light he has no home to return to. The fight is his home. This is why, in the long, grinding middle of the struggle, the villain always seems to be gaining ground. He is operating with a lighter, faster, more ruthless machinery. Your strength is the strength of a bridge, immense, durable, but static, designed to bear weight according to a strict code. His strength is the strength of the wrecking ball, single-purpose, devastating, and bound by no code at all except physics. The bridge must endure countless blows. The wrecking ball only needs to connect once. Your victory, then, is never a triumph of efficiency. It cannot be. It is a triumph of endurance, of outlasting the storm. It is the victory of the bedrock over the earthquake. You win not because you fought with the same freedom, but because you withstood the brutal cost of fighting without it. You prove that the scaffold, for all its complexity, can hold, that the detours, for all their length, still lead home. The greatest test is not matching his darkness, but proving your light can endure the endless night. He is so free to create. Consider now the nature of belief. Not the quiet personal kind, but the belief that can move masses, that can justify the unjustifiable, that can make a man set his own world on fire and call it a necessary dawn. This brings us to the third pillar of the villain's psychological dominion, the power of charismatic vision and persuasion. The hero fights for what is right, but the villain, he sells a story, and often it is a far more compelling one. He understands something fundamental that the guardian of the status quo often forgets. People are not won by facts alone. They are moved by grievance, by promise, by a sense of belonging to something greater, even if that something is a glorious ruin. The hero speaks the language of preservation. What we have must be protected. The villain speaks the language of revolution. What you have is an illusion, and I offer you the truth. He does not merely point out the cracks in society's foundation. He offers himself as the architect of a new, more honest world, one built atop the rubble of the old. He is not just a destroyer, he is a perverse prophet. This is not about raw power or fear, though those are tools in his kit. This is about a deeper, more seductive form of influence, the villain's uncanny ability to diagnose a real aching pain and then prescribe himself as the cure. He looks at the city, at its inequality, its corruption hidden behind polished marble, its forgotten people in the alleys between towers, and he does not see a system to be mended. He sees proof that the existing order is a lie, and he articulates this with a clarity that is devastating because it is not entirely false. He validates the anger of the marginalized. He gives a name and a face to the vague, systemic dread felt by the comfortable. He is a master of the half-truth, the logical extreme, the what-if that curdles into why not. While the hero is bound to the tedious work of due process and institutional reform, a slow, grinding, and often invisible labor, the villain offers catharsis. He offers a simple, brutal solution. He offers the visceral thrill of watching the flawed, hypocritical system burn. He says, "You feel powerless? I will give you power. You feel invisible? Join me, and we will make them all see." He doesn't ask for patience, he demands commitment to a single, explosive act of recreation. This vision is intoxicating. It turns followers into disciples, henchmen into zealots. They are not merely employed, they are converted. This highlights a critical asymmetry in understanding human nature. The hero must believe in the essential goodness of people, in their capacity for reason and redemption. It is the core of his creed. But the villain? He believes in their capacity for everything else, their envy, their pride, their fear, their latent cruelty, and he is rarely wrong. He knows that for every person who will stand for justice, there are 10 who can be manipulated by their own secret desires and unspoken resentments. He speaks to the shadow self, the part people hide even from themselves, and he dignifies it. He calls it strength. He calls it true freedom. He calls it the only rational response to a broken world. His persuasion is a mirror, reflecting back a grander, more powerful version of his followers' own wounded selves. He doesn't recruit soldiers. He recognizes fellow travelers on the road to nihilism or absolute order. He offers them a narrative where they are not the victims, but the pioneers, not the oppressed, but the avengers. His charisma is not warmth, but the heat of a focused, shared grievance. He builds a community of the disillusioned, and in that community he is not a master, but the most devoted servant of their collective anger. That is the most powerful illusion of all. Contrast this with the hero's message. The hero must often say no. No to the easy solution. No to vengeance. No to the shortcuts through the moral quagmire. He offers the hard, unglamorous work of rebuilding, of restraint, of believing in a system that has demonstrably failed. He asks for faith in a process, not a person. He is a symbol of a principle, which is cold comfort to someone whose home has been destroyed by the very chaos the villain promises to erase. The villain's message is emotional, immediate, and personal. The hero's is structural, long-term, and abstract. In the battle for hearts and minds, the emotional argument, however twisted, has a head start that is difficult to overcome. This is why the villain so often seems to have the city in the palm of his hand, even as he strangles it. He is not just fighting its protectors, he is courting its soul. He understands its secret self-loathing, its buried rot better than its would-be saviors do. His power comes from telling the city the terrible secret thing it already suspects about itself, and then offering to be the one brave enough to act on it. He turns public doubt into his private army. To defeat him, then, is not enough to disprove his facts. You must dismantle his story. You must offer a more compelling vision than the glorious ruin he promises. You must prove that healing is more powerful than cauterization, that building is more courageous than burning, and that the messy, flawed work of hope is a harder, truer strength than the clean, final certainty of despair. You must fight not just the man, but the beautiful, terrible lie he has made so many want to believe. Because the most dangerous prison is not one made of iron, but one the prisoner is convinced he built for his own liberation. Now we arrive at the most uncomfortable truth, the one that gives the villain his unsettling, resonant power. It is not enough to be a charismatic liar. The greatest villains are not liars at all, not in the way we wish they were. They are instead terrible truth-tellers. This is the fourth pillar, proximity to thematic truth. They build their fortress of lies on a foundation of something real, something the good world has ignored, papered over, or simply grown too comfortable to see. They point to the crack in the marble facade and ask, with a smile, why everyone is pretending it isn't there. The hero fights for what should be. The villain points at what is. He looks at the city, at the powerful who escape consequence, at the desperate driven to crime, at the gilded institutions built on compromises and quiet corruption, and he refuses to look away. He refuses the polite fiction. He takes the unspoken, systemic rot and drags it into the light, giving it a name and a face. His great insight, his source of power, is that he recognizes the hypocrisy in the system he seeks to destroy, and he wields that hypocrisy like a weapon against those who defend it. This is why his message resonates, even with those who would never follow him. When he speaks of a broken world, he is not inventing the brokenness. He is simply the only one willing to use the shattered pieces as a blade. He confronts us with the dark reflection of our own society. He is the living, breathing consequence of the sins we, as a city, have chosen to tolerate. The corrupt official embezzles funds in a shadowy office. The villain blows up the bank and declares all wealth a crime. The hero works within a system that moves too slowly to save everyone. The villain executes swift, brutal justice. In the alleys, the system forgot. He is the perverse, logical endpoint of our collective failures. Your mission, as a guardian, is often to uphold a system, to believe it can be healed from within, that its core is sound. But the villain challenges that belief at its root. He asks a simple, devastating question. If the system is so just, why did it create me? If the world is so good, why does my vision of chaos feel so familiar to those who live in its shadows? He doesn't just break the rules. He exposes them as arbitrary, or worse, as tools of control. He forces the hero into a defensive, almost apologetic stance, not just fighting a man, but defending the imperfections of an entire world order. You are not just battling a criminal, you are wrestling with the valid critique he embodies, even as you reject his monstrous solution. This proximity to truth grants him a psychological invulnerability that armor cannot provide. You cannot reason away a grievance that is rooted in reality. You cannot offer platitudes about the way things are done to someone who has seen how those ways fail the vulnerable. His power stems from the fact that he is, in a warped sense, more honest than the society he terrorizes. He has accepted the darkest implications of human nature and institutional decay, while everyone else is still pretending they are anomalies, not features. He lives in the world as he truly believes it to be, a jungle. And in a jungle, his ruthlessness isn't evil, it is the supreme form of rationality. This creates a profound moral trap for the hero. To defeat the villain, you must ultimately validate the very system the villain has exposed as flawed. You must catch the criminal, but you cannot so easily fix the conditions that created him. You can put the man in Arkham, but does that repair the corruption that funded his experiments? Does it heal the inequality that made his followers so eager to burn everything down? The villain's legacy is the lingering doubt he plants. Even in his defeat, he leaves behind the poison of his question, was I really so wrong about all of you? He wins by making you wonder if in defending the world you are merely defending its disease. He becomes a dark mirror, and in that reflection, the hero must see not just an enemy, but a potential version of himself. The line between justice and vengeance, order and tyranny, is the line you walk every night. The villain is the one who gleefully crossed it. He is the embodiment of the what if. What if you stopped believing in redemption? What if you decided the ends do justify the means? What if you accepted the world as a cruel joke and decided to become the punchline? He is the proof of concept for a path you have always refused to take, and that makes him more than an adversary. He is a walking temptation, a living critique of your own restraint. So you fight him not because his diagnosis is entirely false, but because his cure is a terminal disease. You fight to prove that a flawed world is still worth saving, not by a perfect savior, but by flawed people striving to be better. You fight to prove that the truth he weaponizes is not the only truth, that alongside the corruption there is also courage, alongside the apathy there is compassion, alongside the broken system there are individuals within it refusing to break. You are not defending a perfect city, you are defending the possibility within an imperfect one. But remember this, he draws his strength from the wounds we pretend aren't there. He cannot be truly defeated until those wounds are acknowledged, until the truth he exploits is addressed not with force, but with a more honest justice. Otherwise, you are merely putting out a fire while leaving the arsonist's fuel scattered everywhere, waiting for the next spark. His greatest victory is making you see the world through his eyes, even for a second, and making you fear he might be right. This brings us to the engine of the conflict itself, the grinding daily reality of the fight. We've spoken of the villain's freedom, his vision, his dark truths, but these advantages would mean little if not for the raw, asymmetrical friction they create against the one who stands in his way. This is the fifth, most operational point, the hero's inefficiency as the villain's fuel. The very qualities that make a hero worthy of the name are, in the tactical eater of their war, exploitable liabilities. The villain doesn't just have strengths, he is actively powered by your perceived weaknesses. Think of it as a duel fought with different sets of physics. The villain operates in a world of brutal cause and effect simplicity. An obstacle appears, he removes it, permanently, if necessary. A secret threatens him, he silences the holder. A resource is needed, he takes it. His path is a straight line drawn with a ruthless hand. You, however, move through a dense, sticky web of obligation. That obstacle might be a corrupted man who could be redeemed. That secret is held by a terrified witness you must protect, not eliminate. That resource belongs to someone else, and taking it would make you no better than the thief you hunt. Your path is not a line, but a constant series of detours, rescues, and ethical recalibrations. This is the cruel arithmetic of their advantage. For every minute you spend ensuring a civilian is safe, he spends a minute advancing his plan. For every hour you devote to gathering evidence that will hold up in a system you know is compromised, he devotes an hour to planting another bomb. Your morality imposes a tax on your time, your energy, your focus, a tax he does not pay. He is investing every resource directly into the conflict, while you must divert yours into upholding the very world you are fighting for. You are playing chess, while also holding up the chessboard to keep it from collapsing. Consider the power of unilateral action. The villain trusts no one and thus needs no one's agreement. He decides and he acts. There is no debate, no consensus, no moral quorum. He is a single focused will. You, however, are part of an ecosystem. Even if you often work alone, you are bound to the slow gears of institutions, the police who must follow procedure, the allies who demand explanations, the public whose trust you cannot afford to shatter. You must build a case, not just deliver punishment. This institutional friction is the grease for his machinery. Your need for collaboration creates seams, moments of delay, vulnerabilities in communication, all of which he is watching for, and all of which he will exploit. And then there is mercy. It is your cornerstone, the proof of your creed, but to him, it is a predictable, rechargeable resource. He knows you will not kill him. He knows that at the precipice, you will choose the harder path of capture, of containment. This isn't a secret. It's a clause in his contract with chaos. It means every defeat is potentially temporary. Every confrontation is merely a round in a fight he believes has no final bell. He can afford to be reckless, to gamble everything, because the ultimate price, oblivion, is one you're unwilling to extract. Your mercy becomes his strategic safety net. He fights with the confidence of a man who knows the worst outcome is a cell with his name on it, from which he can continue to think, to plot, to hate. You fight with the burden of knowing you must find a way to win without becoming the monster he expects you to be. This extends to your methods. You are forced to be reactive, a diagnostician of his diseases. He invents the poison. You must find the antidote. He designs the trap. You must solve the puzzle while standing in his jaws. Your brilliance is often a reactive brilliance, the brilliance of the solver, not the initiator. This constant state of response is exhausting. It means you are always playing his game, on his board by the rules he has already bent. Your victories are thus defensive, a series of miraculous preventions. His victories, even small ones, are offensive, carving new scars into the city's body. The public sees the scars. They only hear about the preventions. The narrative of damage is high to right. This inefficiency is psychological fuel for him as well. It validates his entire worldview. Your reluctance to cross the line, to use his methods, to embrace simple brutality, is proof to him of your sentimentality, your weakness, your fundamental denial of the world as it truly is. Every time you choose the harder right over the easier wrong, he doesn't see nobility. He sees a confirming data point for his thesis that your code is a fragile delusion. Your greatest strength, in his eyes, is your greatest foolishness. And nothing empowers a fanatic more than the feeling that his opponent is a fool clinging to a fairy tale. So you persist. Not because it is efficient, but because it is necessary. You accept the tax. You bear the friction, you make the detours, because the fight isn't just to stop him tonight, it's to prove that a world operating on his ruthless, efficient physics is not a world worth saving. You are fighting for the very idea of inefficiency, for the time-consuming act of care, for the cumbersome process of justice, for the weakness of compassion. You are demonstrating through your own arduous example that there is a profound and different strength in restraint. A power in refusing to become the mirror image of what you hate. But never forget, he is watching your every sacrifice, your every hard choice, and he is not inspired. He is taking notes. He is measuring the strain on the scaffold of your principles, looking for the point where the weight of his chaos might finally make it buckle. He builds his victory not in spite of your code, but by using its weight to try and break you. And so we come to the final, most chilling form of their triumph. It is the one that lingers long after the sirens fade and the last smoke clears from the battlefield. You must understand this above all. Their goal is rarely mere survival. To view victory, the moment you handcuff them or watch them fall, is to misunderstand the game entirely. This is the sixth, and in many ways, the ultimate point. Victory is redefined legacy and impact over survival. Their success is not measured in the final confrontation, but in the indelible mark they leave upon the world, and more importantly, upon you. Think of it. They enter the story as a catalyst, a violent question posed to the established order. Their end game is to become an answer so powerful it rewrites the rules of the world that follows. They do not need to rule the city to conquer it. They need only to prove that their cynical, brutal vision of human nature and society is the correct one. And how do they prove it? By forcing the world, and you as protector, to bend, to break, to become living evidence of their thesis. Their first and most tangible victory is in the scars they leave on the landscape, not just the physical rubble, though that is their canvas. They scar institutions. A courthouse bombed is not just a building destroyed, it is the idea of impartial justice shaken. A police force corrupted is not just a logistical problem, it is the public's trust, once broken, that can never be fully mended. They change the skyline of the soul. They make fear a permanent resident where hope used to live. Long after they are gone, the city moves differently. More guards, more locks, more suspicion. It becomes, in small but significant ways, the fortress of paranoia they always said it should be. They don't have to build their new order. They make you build its defensive shell for them. But the true masterpiece of their victory is the corruption of the hero. This is their grail. They do not simply want to defeat you, they want to recruit you. Not to their side, but to their understanding. Their most profound goal is to make you see the world through their eye, to force you to accept that the only way to beat a monster is to become one. Every time they push you to the brink, every time they force you to choose between two horrors, they are offering you a lesson in their philosophy. They are whispering, see, this is the reality. Now what will you do? And so, they measure their success in your compromises. Did you have to break your code to catch them? Did you have to instill fear in an innocent to save them? Did you have to use their methods, just for a moment, just this once? If so, they have won. They have proven that their tools are the only effective ones. They have dragged you even an inch into the moral quagmire where they reside. You may walk back out, but the stain is on your boots. You know what it felt like, and so do they. You become a living monument to the idea that absolute purity cannot survive in the world they have revealed. They aim to shatter your fundamental belief, the belief in redemption, in the essential goodness that can be appealed to. When they force you to fight a war without end, a war where the same faces return from the abyss again and again, they are trying to kill your hope. They want to replace it with the weary, grim certainty of the prison guard, not the hopeful vision of the healer. They want you to look at a man and see only a cell waiting to be filled, not a soul that could be saved. If they can make you see the world as a collection of problems to be contained, rather than people to be uplifted, then their worldview has metastasized within you. This is why they so often smile in defeat, because the handcuffs are a prop, the cell is a stage. The real performance was a transformation they wrought. They have, through their actions, demonstrated the fragility of your system. They have exposed the rot you defend, and they have tested your core principles to their absolute limit, often leaving them cracked. They leave behind a hero who is harder, colder, more haunted. They leave behind a city that is more fearful, more cynical. They leave behind a question hanging in the air. If this is what it takes to win, what exactly did we win? Your victory, then, is not in their capture. It is in the aftermath. It is in the refusal to let their legacy be the final word. It is in rebuilding the courthouse, not just as a building, but as a symbol that justice, though attacked, still stands. It is in cleaning the police force, not just to catch the next villain, but to restore a covenant with the people. It is in your own private struggle, the fight to mend the cracks in your faith, to wake up from the nightmare they planted in your mind and choose hope again deliberately, painfully, as an act of defiance. The battle in the climax is against the man. The war that follows is against his ghost, against the echo of his laughter in every hard choice you make, against the temptation to see the city as he saw it, a lost cause, a beautiful disease. You must fight to prove that the light is not a delusion but a choice, that the world is not inherently theirs, it is a battleground of ideas, and the idea you fight for, the messy, imperfect, hopeful idea, can endure their most violent attempt at proof by contradiction. They come out on top by changing what top means. They claim the high ground of a shattered reality. Your task is to stand in the rubble, not as its king, but as its gardener, and prove that something can still grow. Here, because their ultimate goal was never to survive the story. It was to become the story you can never stop telling yourself.